Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining me for this episode of More Than Anxiety. I'm so excited to introduce you to Jen Colombo. I'm going to let her introduce herself and tell you all about what she does with art and how she uses it to help her process emotions and do all kinds of things. So, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I am super
Yeah.
excited to be here and share this perspective with your audience. And I am an artist, as Megan said, and I am primarily a watercolorist. And I use art. It is one of my most favorite things to do. It nourishes my soul, but it is also a really beautiful way for me to process emotions. The act of creating in and of itself for me is super healing. And in addition to that, I have used art as a way to work through limiting beliefs, to move through emotions, to process emotions. And that is its own practice that looks very different than the artwork that people see me actually share.
This is going to be so good. And I know that there's people listening right now. They're like, wait a second, I'm not really very creative. I don't really do art. So before we even go into the like, do not turn the podcast off. Just hang tight for a minute. What would you tell those people who are like, but I don't know how to paint?
Yes. Okay. So first of all, this is great. Like Megan said, don't turn the podcast off because I got you. So first of all, I'm going to start with the idea of I'm not creative because a lot of people come to me with that. And I believe we are all creative and we are creative
Mhm.
every single day. It just comes out in different ways. We tend to think of it being more like a visual performing or music, art, or writing, but that's not true. We're creative when we're gardening, when we're cooking, if you have kids and you're making up games, if even if you're one of those organized people, oh my gosh, you are creative. So, with that being said, um, I ask you just for these few moments to let go of the idea of not being creative or not being an artist because you don't have to be a painter. You can use crayons, you can use markers, you can have whatever it is that you have on your desk to do these very simple activities and processes. And I use this all the time myself. And that is not what people see me share. That is not my actual like artwork that is shown. I like to think of this as for those of you who love to journal, it's like journaling where you don't worry about grammar, spelling. If your handwriting is like, oh my gosh, I can't even read that because you're going so fast, same idea, except instead of journaling, use art supplies, which can be anything you have around the house.
I love this. And there's going to be a demonstration like towards the end of something you can actually do. So if you hang tight, even if you think you're not creative, you'll still get a way that you can figure out that like, okay, I was wrong. You really can be. So we're going to do a technique. So how did you, so art, I'm assuming the art was always a thing for you, or did you learn later on that you were good at art? Like, how did this work?
So I've always been creative. I've always been an artist. One of my favorite things to play with as a child was arts and crafts supplies.
Mhm.
So it has been something that has always been part of my life. Later on, when I went to high school, you could take art as one of the electives, and it wasn't just like this little thing that was kind of disregarded to the side as just like, oh, it's just something to do. It was actual like really amazing art classes. That is actually where I learned how to professionally watercolor later on in high
So
school.
cool.
So it's always been something that has been part of me, drawing and painting. It's sort of in my family line as well. And it's just really, truly a love and something that just makes my heart and soul just absolutely sing. And what happened later on in life is I did not originally go on to be an artist. I wasn't really sure what to do with it. It was like this is like my fun thing, but I don't really get how
Mhm.
to do this as a career. Um, I wound up going to college eventually. I switched majors. I wound up going and I had my bachelor's of fine arts actually in theatrical scenery design. And I worked in the
Mhm.
entertainment business for many years. And when I left the business to do something completely, completely different, not creative at all, was getting these nudges to go back to creating and to go back to painting. And I first I did not listen. So, by the way, this is another tip. If you hear some nudges and whispers, you might want to listen because if you don't listen
Yeah.
right away, they get louder until you
Just
listen.
give in because you know that you're pushing it. Oh, there's a lot of us that have been there for that one, but yes.
Yep. Yep. So I ignored and I ignored until I finally got the shove so hard. I was like, I can't. Okay, fine. And what I decided to do was because I had been in a creative field and not in a creative field, but I didn't really have my own painting practice for that period of time. That sort of went to the wayside.
Hmm.
And I was like, I'm gonna take a beginner watercolor class at like the local, adult continuing ed. Just I'm probably rusty, all that stuff. So I went and wanted to do it for just I wanted to be in a group of people for fun, joy, all of that stuff, never
Hmm.
anticipating what was going to unfold. And I went and sat in class and I got the nudge again of like, you're not following any of the assignments. And I was like, oh gosh, this is like a rule follower. I'm a rule follower. I was like, I must. And I was like, okay, I was like, learned my lesson already. So I
Uh-huh.
started creating to just music, not listening, tossing out the
Ooh,
assignment, and I was allowing the music to guide me. So whatever I was listening to would guide what colors I picked up, how I was playing with the paint, what shapes I made, what movement I made, which of course music is also tied into emotions, right? We can listen to all different kinds
right.
of music to it will evoke emotions, but also if you're like, oh, I want to really tap into this, you can go put on a really sad song if you need to cry. If you need to like bump it up, you can put on a song that's like cheerful, or if you need to
Mhm.
chill out, you can put on calming music. So wait, do you want to add to that?
When I get frustrated, I listen to like screamo metal and gangster rap.
Yeah, love this. Yeah. So
Like I will just like let me go in my car and drive and scream and do all the things. And yeah, you're right. Like music is such, and it's one of those things that, I think that so often our emotions are tied to our senses, right? I mean, we smell something and it reminds me of when we were a little kid and we were at our grandparents' house or whatever that smell is for you. But the same is true for music and for the things like, and for art. So,
right.
music, I love it. I love where you're going with this, like tying in music to
Yeah,
your
and
creativity. Okay.
yeah, and I started developing this. There were probably people teaching this. I just had no idea or to go look for this. And it clearly was not my
Mhm.
journey. My journey was to unfold and discover this for myself.
Mhm.
Around the same time, I had started also meditating and
Mm.
noticed what happened was when I would meditate, I would see an image and it would influence my work. Like sometimes I would get a strong nudge to paint it. And then what started happening is every time I went to sit down to paint, especially if I had music in, and specifically more like calming, spa-like music, meditation music, I started to find that the actual creation process became a form of meditation for me as well.
I love that.
And as I was doing more like inner work and personal growth work and everything and learning about different emotions and emotional regulation and all of the different tools that you could use to support and help you through that, I started tying my art practice into it. So,
That's incredible.
yeah,
Yeah.
so when I wanted to express emotion or release emotion, or I wasn't 100% sure exactly what I was feeling because things were jumbled up, I would literally just grab my little art journal
Mhm.
and a box of crayons or colored pencils. This is where I was talking about like, this is not always about using professional stuff.
Mhm.
And I would just color it out and like see what happened. And I started to notice that if I was frustrated, for example, or feeling anxious, for example, I would just notice, I would just grab whatever colors wanted to, you know, be picked up and played with. And I would notice the tension I was feeling like in my body, like as I was holding the crayon, right? The tension would start to release. And then I would get to a point where I was like, oh, I feel complete with this. And sometimes I chose to write about it, and sometimes like that was it. And it was okay, move on. And we'll also do that with my watercolors. Like, even if I just want to get into a state of calm and bliss, even if I'm already in a good mood, right? I can still elevate
Hmm.
that. I might
Right.
play with my watercolors. And I also sometimes like to listen to that music, play with my watercolors, sometimes close my eyes. I'll even use my hands sometimes to like actually like finger paint with
Hmm.
my watercolors, like for real
Ooh.
tactile experience. Which, by the way, some people do not like this because they don't like the way it feels. I like the way it feels, and I find it very soothing to run my hands through the water
Hmm.
paint.
Hmm.
So it's a choose your own adventure. Some people love
Yeah.
it, some people don't. And it became a really great way for me to work through and process emotions. And
Mhm.
it's so funny because it's like two very different ways for me to express my creativity and art, yet at the same time, they're all tied together.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that if for people who are listening that are like, "Oh, now we're talking about processing emotions again. I don't know what that is." Don't overthink this. Okay,
Yeah.
so processing emotions doesn't. There's no special technique. There's no right or wrong way to do this. Some people will tell you that they run. Like my sister-in-law would say, "When I get angry, when I get sad, when I get anything else, I run," and that helps her not try to take those emotions and shove them away and forget about them. Really, the whole idea of processing emotions is feeling whatever it is that you feel and letting it be there. Now, if you are one of those people that is completely incapacitated by your emotions, where it's like, I cannot handle this horrible
Mhm.
feeling, this is a technique that you can do to allow you to say, yeah, I'm not going to push this away. I mean, whether it's grief or it's anger or it's sadness or fear or whatever that emotion is, the more you try to shove it into that box, the stronger it's going to get because you haven't done anything to allow whatever it is that happened that caused that emotion, the thoughts that you have, whatever's going on, you're not letting it play play out. So when we're talking about processing emotions, what we're talking about is feeling the hard stuff and feeling the really good stuff and just
Mhm.
allowing your emotions to move from something that's really uncomfortable or really painful into a place of even just being tolerable to neutral and then eventually to I don't feel awful. I feel pretty decent. I feel good. No, I feel amazing. That's processing emotions. And however you do that, and please tell me that you have a way to do that because if you don't, that's really what we need to work on here.
Mhm.
That's really the process. That is the processing emotions. So art is a great way to do that. So um you said that you didn't learn this from anybody, that you kind of figured it out. And I think this is so
Yeah.
fun because one of the things that I've done with clients is to say, okay, I want you to describe the way that anxiety feels inside of your body. Like, what color is it? What does it feel
Mhm.
like? What shape is it? Like, does it move? Does it have a smell? Does it have a taste? So, yeah, and then talking to it. So, tell me more about your process and how you kind of came to this place.
Yeah, well, at the same time, I was also doing a movement process that I was learning from somebody else, and the movement process would be tied to different emotions. And somehow they got intertwined and tied in together.
Ah.
Because she was like, "Oh, you're an artist. Why don't you sort of play with this?" And so I had already been playing with it before I started working with her, just when I went and
Mm,
sat down in that initial class. And then I was just like, "Oh, okay," because I am a very visual processor. So sometimes, if somebody says to feel something or to do X, Y, and Z that doesn't quite work for me, I need
mhm,
a visual cue. So
mm,
just give myself the visual cues. So just like you were saying, like, where does it feel in your body? I might be more inclined to say, "Oh, this looks like this color and it's kind of like this tied up like ball or whatever, right?
yes.
Depending on what the
Yeah.
emotion is, that works for me better. And when I go to release them, sometimes like I visually can see that like in my mind as I'm letting it go. Whereas
Mhm.
somebody might have something else that works better for them. The breathing thing took me a really long time to be able to use. I use
Mhm.
it now, and now I can feel more in my body, but like it took me a very, very long time to get that. So I
Mhm.
had the visual stuff while I worked on the other the other ways. And Yeah, it was funny. I think I didn't really think I understood fully what I was doing actually until somebody actually pointed it out to me. Because
Yeah.
it was so, natural and intuitive, and then when I looked when I thought back, hindsight is amazing, right? Especially, like, as you get
Yes.
older, and
Yeah.
I started to kinda go, "Oh, I think I was doing this, like, along the way in various different ways when I was having trouble communicating or expressing myself." Um,
Hmm.
I just didn't know that that's what I was doing, like, just artwork that I would create, like, even for a school assignment or something. I
Hmm.
had no idea. Looking back, I was kinda like, "Oh, I'm pretty sure I was doing that here, here, and here." I
Uh-huh.
just had no idea.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I get this question all the time where people are like, but what did you do? Like, at what, like, so if you've not ever listened to an episode before, or if you, I don't even know if we talked about this, but like I had an anxiety disorder for 30 years, like crippling anxiety disorder at times where everything was awful and I'm not there anymore. Right. Like that's not my life anymore, which is amazing. And people are like, just tell me exactly what you did. And I'm like, well, I can tell you what I did, but I can't tell you why I did it. And there's something about it that's very intuitive. And I mean, the thing that I know that I did for all the wrong reasons, like not for like not because I was like, yeah, I'm going to recover from this anxiety thing. I thought I was going to have it forever. I started taking
Mhm,
walks because one, I could walk and I knew that when I got back I felt pretty good. I could eat cookies, which was amazing because I was like I had quiet time. I have 4 kids. I was like hanging out by myself, getting that quiet time, and in the process, like giving myself space to not be on all the time,
mhm,
to walk and to burn some of that energy out. Did I intend on starting to do all of the things that whatever happened that got that ball rolling? No. But in hindsight, I'm like, oh, all these things that I'm teaching people, I accidentally started doing. It is intuitive.
mhm,
And we talk ourselves out of it.
mhm. Yeah, and you said walking. Walking is one of my favorite things to do.
Hmm.
I love walking for so many reasons. If I am feeling a lot of stuff and, like, or I need to, like, sort of get clarity or, like, think things out, or I'm overthinking, I should say, rather.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm
Yeah.
overthinking, that's usually where I get in a little bit of trouble. So I can recognize when that's happening. So I'll go
Mhm.
take a walk out in nature. I fortunately live near the beach. A lot of my work is inspired by the water, at least one collection is. And nature in general is great inspiration for me. So I love being able to walk because there's something about that movement too, and like being in the fresh
Mhm.
air and your feet on the ground and like listening to what's around you. And it really can shift your mood, or at least for me, it does. And as a
Mhm.
bonus, it always works as inspiration, as creative
Right.
inspiration too.
Yeah. And that's so important. So just for the people listening, like recognizing that neither of us actually set out to end up where we are. So if you're telling yourself you have to have the exact step, like, well, how do I start? What do I do first? That's not really what it's about. It really is about listening to what you need and then noticing what makes you feel good or inspires you or gets you up moving on those days when you're like, I just can't. Like it's too much.
Yeah, for sure. And it's true, and I'm sure, like you, I've collected a whole bunch of different things over the years, and depending on what day it is, depends on what I choose to do. Um, Art and painting is kind of always my number one, like, go-to for it's like my Swiss Army knife of, like, all of the different things, because I could use it as meditation, I use it as relaxation, I use it if I'm feeling a little stressed, I'm like, "Okay, let me paint for a little bit and just see what happens here." So I use it for a lot of different things, but I use all of the other things too, and sometimes it's, "No, I feel like going outside," or I feel like I want to listen to a meditation, or I want to do some breath
Mhm.
work, or no, today it's I'm gonna paint in my studio. And sometimes I use I will over if I catch myself, I don't do this very often anymore because, as you said, like, how did you get to not do that anymore? It was kind of just like a unfolding over time. And like it
Yeah.
started in that classroom where I was like, I'm not following any of the rules. And
Yeah.
I'm just gonna paint and like let the paint flow, and I'm not gonna worry about painting anything realistically anymore. And all the things I learned, we're gonna throw it out the window for now.
Mhm.
But I do also do commissioned work for clients, so there's obviously an
Yeah.
expectation of an outcome right at the end, versus if I'm painting some of my own collections. Um, and if I catch myself in overthinking a client's commission, or
Hmm.
like kind of like any like doubt creeping in or anything like that, I'm pretty good at recognizing it now. And I'm like, okay. And sometimes it's actually playing creatively with no
Uh-huh.
expectation and just like throwing paint around or coloring and then going back to it. So I can actually use my art
Yeah.
that way too. If I get in a jam with my art, I can actually use a slightly different form of it to get myself out of the jam and then go back into it.
So good, especially for the people who think that like, well, if I started, I have to finish it. I mean,
Yeah.
you're not painting a painting in one session.
No,
Right?
especially
We're
I am
not
definitely
fixing things
not.
in one session here. Yeah.
No, especially like when I'm doing really large pieces, like no, I'm not
Right.
doing that in one sitting. And also I am
Right.
a watercolorist, and
Right.
yeah, I have a joke. It's not really a joke though. I'm just like, oh, I'm just waiting for paint to dry. Because
Right.
sometimes I spend a few minutes on something and then I have to
Yeah.
walk away for several hours.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And that's such a good lesson too. Just realizing that it's that those pauses are necessary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
And
if
then I
you're not a watercolorist, you don't, it's not like the paint by number. Well, I guess it even could be like the paint by number books that we used to do. Maybe they don't even make those anymore where you just do the water over. It's not a one and done thing. Like there are
no.
layers there and it has to bleed in the right spot and then stop. And
Yes. And, I think this also took me a long time to do, but I feel like this might be very helpful for the audience.
Mhm.
Several weeks ago, I was on a co-working thing and I happened to be working on a painting during this co-working session. And at the end, somebody said to me, ooh, what happens if you make a mistake? And I was like, oh,
No.
fascinating. Because, like, I haven't really thought about this in a very long time. Because, again,
Right.
done all of this work to get to a very different place. And I said to her, I don't worry about it. I was like, the worst thing that happens is if I make a mistake, there's a possibility that I can correct it. Watercolor is
Mhm.
significantly harder to correct a mistake than if you were doing acrylic paint, which I also occasionally do sometimes. I could paint over it. Can't necessarily do that here. So I said to her, I said, well, I said, the worst thing that happens is it goes in the trash can and I just start again. And she was
Yeah.
like, oh. And I was like, yeah, I was like, I don't worry about any of that
Yeah.
stuff anymore. I was like, I used to like
Yeah.
worry about the outcome and like forcing it. And I was like, and what I discovered by just allowing myself to play, just allowing myself to be, I really learned to surrender and let go to the process. And sometimes it goes amazingly well. And every once in a while, like, 'cause I've been watercoloring for a really long time, but I do make mistakes now and again still. Like it does happen. This happened a couple weeks ago. I
Mhm.
wasn't happy with how something was looking, and I probably could have forced through it. And I decided, nope, it's going in the trash. I'm just gonna start again. Like, no big
Yeah.
deal. And that took me a really long time to get to that point too, with being okay with it's okay to not have the outcome and like you just start again. And I'm like, oh, big deal. I paint more.
Yeah. How great though that there's like zero judgment in your voice with that. You're like, whatever, I just throw in the trash and start again. And some
Yeah.
people are like, oh my God, see, I always mess up. I just can't do this. And then it's not about, I mean, this is something that comes up, whether it's like I have to be perfect or I don't want people to judge me if I do it wrong or whatever your thought process
Yeah.
is. There's a lot of freedom in that.
Yeah.
And like, whatever, okay, well, I messed up. And not
Yeah.
judging yourself, not judging whatever your ability or anything else, just saying like, well, you know what, that was a thing.
Yeah. And
It's
honestly,
such an
sometimes
important lesson.
it's, even if that does happen, I learn from it because when I paint different collections, like, yes, I have a very good handle now on the medium because I've been doing it
Mhm.
for a long time. But if I purchase a different kind of paper, or if I even a different brand of paint, and even all the different paints can sometimes work a little differently.
Mm,
If I'm using new stuff or I'm starting a new collection, I may not 100% know how to go about doing it. So I
yeah.
choose to be in an experiment phase. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to try these materials. Let me see oh, okay, you know what? Like I tried this paper and this paper. I like the results better with this paper. And then I go on to do the thing. So I feel like that's also really important too, this decision and to be like, I'm experimenting here, I'm exploring right here, and I'm going
Mhm.
to see what happens, and then I'm going to move on from there.
That's so good. Yes. And watercolor is, I mean, you have to be willing to let go of control.
Yes, you do.
Do not, like, if you're going in there like, I'm going to make this straight line. No,
Yeah.
you're probably not. It
Yeah.
is a different kind of medium. And it is one of those
Yeah.
things where you have to be willing to be like, let's just, I think play, like what you said with play,
Mhm.
it's such an important thing. And we lose track of that. And when you saying that when you were a kid, you always gravitated towards like art supplies or craft supplies or anything like
Yeah.
that. But thinking about what you loved as a kid and realizing that it wasn't, I mean, even if you played Office, like, which
Mhm.
is still creative play, like you're still pretending
Totally.
like you're in an office or anything else. Like, what did you love about it? Was it because you had all these cool supplies in front of you? Was it you just liked the supplies because that was me? Or was it that you liked being in charge? Or going back to that idea of what you played as a kid, whether it was sports or art or anything else, is so important. And what we know is that when we're looking for our brains to change, whether it's to feel less anxious or to be more creative or anything else, that
Mhm.
when you do it by repetition alone, when it's just like, I'm going to try it and practice it, it takes a ton of repetition to do that. But when you incorporate it with play and you make it fun, and especially when you incorporate movement with it, it takes a fraction, like a tenth of the amount of time to do that. So I think it's so important to make these things, especially processing emotions, especially processing big emotions like anxiety or grief or anything else, the lighter and the easier and the more playful we can make it, the faster your brain changes and adapts. And painting is an amazing way to do that.
Yeah, and you just reminded me of something else too. Sometimes I have also found that I'm doing other things, whether it was a
Mm,
meditation session or some sort of energy session or movement session, or there's something I've discovered about like, oh, I really want to remember this. Like this is what
mhm,
I'm shifting into. This is what I really want to remember. Sometimes I will do this practice just to create a visual to sort of add an
mm.
extra layer to what's already been done, sort of like elevating and sort of sealing the deal.
Yeah,
And even above my desk, I have work that I don't necessarily show people. That's not what it's for. They're just
yeah.
visual reminders of certain things for me. So one
That's
is
so
to like
good.
remember to be in the present moment. And I have other ones as well, but I like to have those visual cues because like I said, like I am I'm very visual
Mhm,
learner. And that's very helpful to me. So,
mhm.
that's another thing that people could do too. And it doesn't have to be, again, it doesn't have to be this amazing thing that's meant to hang in a gallery or museum. Some of my
Right.
favorite things that are reminders are like scribbles. Like I would never look to sell that or anything. Like that's not what its purpose is.
Yeah, and that's so good, and for people who aren't visual learners, um, like an old teacher trick for me was always when I was teaching high school, and I went through this period where I changed my teaching style a lot, but I had this group where we did a lot of doodle journaling, where I was
Mhm.
like, I do not care how you do this, you get graded on your notes. And I always really graded on notes for probably up until COVID. Everything was like, your notes are your grade. And if my goal is for you to remember this concept, I want you to use crayons, markers, colored pencils, anything you've got. I want you, if we're talking about the Revolutionary War and you want to draw it out with like little soldiers fighting, and then write like draw a hill and write Bunker Hill. I don't care how you do it, but the more that you can integrate those colors and pictures in there,
Mhm.
and even if you make like you can draw sounds, like if guns are shooting, you can draw little bullets or anything else, whatever it is that you want to remember, it's so good to be able to connect all of those different ways, and especially writing it down. I think that so many times we think we're going to remember something, so we put it in our notes app and then we get frustrated with ourselves. That's not going to do it for you. You have to, this is why I'm such a fan of paper and pencil. And I realize that
Same.
makes me old, but I don't care. Write it down because that process of writing it and moving it, it's different than typing it in your computer and putting it away. It actually connects everything. If you are an auditory learner like I am, music, my friends, like tie it to a song. Like your memories are tied to songs. Like I can tell you, I have more auditory memories, like songs that are connected or memories that are connected to songs than I do visual memories. I'm very much a, I think that's probably why for me, maybe the breath work works better or like the because I listen to it. But for visual learners, yes, get the pictures, do the drawings, do all that. And if you're not, if you're an auditory learner, tie it to music. If you are a kinesthetic like a learner, tie it to emotion, tie it to a game, tie it to bouncing on your toes. You guys can make this work for you. And when you put all of those things together, because even if you are a visual learner, you still are using your other senses. If you are still an auditory learner, having that visual tied to the music is incredible. This is going to help you remember things, but it's also going to pull in all of those things to help you process emotions more quickly. So do it all. But don't worry about doing it right because there is no right or wrong way for any of this. We're just
Mm,
figuring it out.
I love that. I'm like, I wish
Yeah.
she was my teacher when I was in grade school. But I am also, like you said too, this is probably dating myself as well, but like I am 100% old school. I like pen and paper. I like writing out my lists. I like checking.
Hmm.
I still use a paper planner. Like I don't use like I have the digital. Yeah, exactly. I got mine right next to me too. I have a digital calendar because sometimes like meetings pop up in there and like I need the
Right.
links or whatever. But like
Yeah.
even if I do that, it all still goes in my
Oh, yeah.
old school planner. I like being
Hmm.
able to see the entire week.
Hmm.
And half the time I don't even need to look at it because once I write it down, I tend to remember unless there's like a million
Hmm.
things that are going on. So I love writing as well. Like that is really key to me, which I guess isn't really a surprise considering I like drawing and painting. I love the writing
Yeah.
aspects too.
It really is. And you know what? I mean, not to go on a side tangent here, but I tried really, really hard to move everything onto Notion or to Google Docs, and I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to be that person. I like put the app on my phone, I did the things, and I couldn't remember anything. Like I would make a grocery list or I would make a to-do list on Notion, and I couldn't remember anything that I put in there. But if I write it on a piece of paper, I could actually picture it in my head better. And I was like, oh, I know what's on the list. I don't have to worry about that. But you're
Mhm.
right. Like there's, I mean, don't be afraid to go old school, kids. Like we know what we're doing. Trust us on this. So yeah. So tell us more. I know that you said that you had like a quick demonstration or an activity that you were going to
Yeah.
teach people to process emotions. Let's
Yeah, so this
play.
is really simple. And this can be like if you want to process emotion. This can also be if you want to just sink into some self-care or like tap into play, creativity, and we'll make it really simple. So whatever art supplies you have available, whether it's crayons or just a simple pen or pencil that's on your desk, if you are short
Mhm.
on time, set your phone for like a 5 minute timer. Like this doesn't have to be a long thing. Grab whatever paper you have around, could be from your printer, in a journal, in a notebook, whatever. I recommend putting on music depending on what it is that you are going for. I tend to have
Mhm.
usually like more ambient, like forest like music going on in my studio when I'm working. But if you want to work on something else, you might want to pick something else. So just pop on a piece of music and then just honestly let go. Try to see if you can let go of any expectation of this is going to be something because it's not. I'm giving you 5 minutes to do this. It's going to be
Mhm.
the old school scribble doodles for those of us that used to have the phone attached to the wall and you used to like draw on notebooks while you were on the phone. That's what we're talking about. Um, for the kids these days, it's probably you're doodling on your iPad, maybe. Um, but just put the music on and set the timer if you need to, turn off notifications if you can, and just allow the music to take you on an adventure and just see if you notice if you have colors with you, see what colors you're gravitating towards. Um, see if you notice like how you're holding what you're drawing with, your pen, your pencil, your crayon. Like, notice, is it really tight? One of the other things you can notice is, this is a big one. This is one for me too. I always catch myself in this one. Um, are you moving too fast? Are you rushing? Even if the song is
Yeah.
slow? Yeah. Yeah,
I have
that one
five
comes
minutes.
up, like, I'd say that
Yeah.
comes up
Are you
90%
gritting
of the
your
time
teeth? Yeah.
with
Relax your jaw.
anybody. Yeah, anytime I do this with people, I'd say like 90 to 95% of the time that comes up. And that, by the way, that's okay. That's just a notice that and go, oh, wait a minute, hold on. Can I like slow down a little bit? Am I going way faster than music? Can I
Mm.
take this down a notch and see like, ooh, where am I rushing in life? I do that all the time. This is like my big thing that
Hmm.
trying to slow down.
Yeah.
And just see if you can notice and like have a good time and notice like, all of a sudden, most people wind up feeling very relaxed when they do this. I guess it depends on what you're going for, but usually people are more in the self-care camp and like looking to be creative and playful or like tap into
Right.
some calm energy. So just notice. And if you're like really feeling frustrated, you're not going to go from frustrated to like joy all the way up at the top, but just notice like with some of that frustration alleviated. Like, did you bump up
Mhm.
a little bit, like Megan was talking about in the beginning of the podcast?
Mhm.
Um, and this is really about like, keep it really, really simple. And I will just like to add, this is a good time to add, I am like a creative guide when I do this. I am not an art therapist. This can be very therapeutic in nature, but like
Mhm.
art therapy is actually a completely different thing. So
Yes.
people get confused, which is why I'm bringing it up. And, art therapists might like, you might, if you're working with an art therapist, you might analyze more about like what's
Yeah.
going on here or whatever. That's not what I guide, because that's not what I do. I'm
Mhm.
also not trained in any of that, but this practice can be very therapeutic in nature. And if you are already
Mhm.
using practices to, get to calm or like move through some emotions or process emotions, you could use this one as a tag on too,
Mhm.
which is something I've done many times over.
Yeah. And there was, I can't remember the episode number, but I did do an episode with an art therapist probably over a year ago now. Her name is Thule Wolf. She lives in Berlin, actually. But I do think this is a great addition to that because therapy is amazing, but not everybody needs therapy.
Mhm.
Right? Like, I don't think that's a thing. And knowing that you have the power to do this in your house without having to connect with a therapist. I mean, if you have some things and you need therapy for sure, and you're into art, go that route. But if you're like, look, I just need to calm down, or I'm so angry, I just need to work through something, you guys can do this without a
Yeah.
therapist. And art is an amazing way to do it. And I
Yeah.
love that you mentioned, notice how tight you're gripping your pen, because I could always tell when my students were stressed out because
Yes.
they would write so dark and they would, is your hand tired after you colored that picture? You might want to ease up. And if you are gritting your teeth and you are scribbling because you have to get on to the next thing, oh my, how
Yeah.
slow can you color? This is a challenge that who did I talk to recently? Someone. And they were talking about how they had so much to do and how they always felt like they were behind. And I was like, my challenge
Mhm.
to you this week is to see how slowly you can brush your teeth. Painfully, one tooth at a time. How slow can you go? It's hard,
I
but
love
this
that.
is a great way to practice it. Like, how slow can I color?
Yep. And if you really need help with that, put on slow music. I know I kind of like, I gave you
Yeah,
guys
yeah.
all a whole bunch of stuff in one, depending on like how you want to use it. But essentially, few minutes, put on music, see what happens, observe what happens. Sometimes I like to
Mm.
journal after I do that. Sometimes, like I said, I feel complete. And if you're really like, oh, if a blank page you find to be way too intimidating and you're not ready for that, um, you could also color in like children or adult coloring books, which I totally do because
Ah.
I use it as a way to totally chill out and just
Mhm.
decompress. So if that is more your avenue first, I say go for it. People
Yeah.
originally are like, wait, you color in coloring books? Because they're like, but you're an artist, like you draw, you paint. And I'm like, yeah, but like it's already there. and I'm just
Right.
coloring. It's just fun. Like I'm just, just doing my
Yeah.
thing. It's very calming and very like it just puts you into instant chill, or at least me it
Mhm.
does.
Yeah, and I think that you're right about the blank page thing, right? For some people, that's really overwhelming. So get on the internet and type in like printable coloring pages. I used to do this when my kids were little all the time because they wanted a million different things. But you can find, like, if you're my age and you're like, I just wish I could color a picture of strawberry shortcake or Care Bears, go. There's a million of them out there, like
Yep.
old 1980s coloring pictures. Get some, color them, and just kind of go to that place. And it's fun.
Yeah, and your inner child would be very happy.
Right.
Like I
And
said, I
you
have
can paint
people.
those pictures too. Get those watercolor paints out, like the little tray that you got in elementary school.
Yep.
Paint them.
Which, by the
So
way, I
fun.
have those because if I
Yeah.
teach in person, that's what I bring. And I use that still in my studio. I don't use
Yeah.
my very expensive professional watercolor paints when I
Yeah.
am in like discovery play mode, just like moving through things.
Right.
Yeah, those are the expensive stuff is for artwork. The little tray, which anybody can access, is for playtime.
Yeah. And it's fun.
It's fun.
Paint everything the wrong color. That's one will stretch you. That'll push you
Oh,
right out
that
of your
too.
perfectionist
Yes.
zone.
There's a
Purple giraffes all day long. Yeah.
whole list of things that like you could do depending on if you're working on perfectionism. That's one of them. Like paint, what you what you wouldn't normally do. I
Hmm.
sometimes tell people I'm like, well, close your eyes for a minute and just see
Hmm.
what happens because it's really like well, your eyes are closed. Like you might even miss the page.
Right.
You don't even know. Or you can
Yeah.
try writing with your non-dominant hand. You've
Hmm.
never done that, let me tell you. It is
It's
really
fun.
hard. There's some people
It
that are amazing
is.
at it and can do
Yeah.
both. Um, but for a lot of people, when you're not using your non-dominant hand, write with your non-dominant hand, and it will
Hmm.
help you let go of perfection because
Hmm.
if you write your name, it is not going to look good. Like it is going to look
No,
like
it's
a
humbling.
kindergartner who's just learning how to
Right.
write, right? So that's another way of like letting go of expectation because you already
Mm.
know this is not going to be a beautiful, perfect signature like you're used to
Yeah.
writing.
That's such a good one. I'm going to
Yeah.
start telling people, yeah, yeah, we're going to color
Non-dominant.
pictures wrong. Wrong.
Yeah.
Do you like how I say already wrong? We're going to color
Love
them
it.
all different colors than you think they're supposed to be. How's that?
And a kid would too, right? Like a
Oh,
kid,
yeah.
if you like just give a kid something, um, they don't care if the sky isn't blue and they make it
No.
green, and they don't care if they color grass purple or they draw stick figures and everything is complete, not only is a stick figure but it's completely out of proportion.
It's coming out of
And
their head.
yeah, and they don't really
Your
think
legs
about
come out of
it.
your head. Yeah.
So like it's all
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. I love so many good things that people can just do right now and that they can do with their kids too, right? I mean, I don't
Yeah.
mean just your toddlers. I mean, your teenagers and have them come do it with you too, because
Yeah.
they will. And it's a great way to connect with your kids or with your friends. I mean, have your friends come over and do your own like wine and art night. Who cares
Hmm.
if it's whatever? I mean, who cares? We're not laughing at our friends for this. I mean, well,
No.
maybe, but not because only because we love them and ours is just as bad, right? Like
Yeah.
it's whatever.
You've just made me think of there's a trend that was going around the internet for a while where it was couples and they had to paint each other. These are
Yes.
people who like, by the way, if you've never painted before, portraiture is in my opinion, is one of the most difficult things to learn. So I think that's part of what's fun about this trend that's
Hmm.
going around. And every once in a while I see it pop up. You you guys are not going to do a very good job in terms of like they're not going to be
It's
technically
hard,
sound, but it's
right?
about the fun and the joy and the play and just having a fun experience together, not
Mhm.
actually creating real portraitures. You would have to take a lot of classes in order to learn how to do that well.
Yeah, these people were not painting the portraits of their spouses or their significant others or whoever else to try and make them feel good.
Yeah,
It
no,
was
it was
just
for
for fun.
fun.
Like they were
It
like,
was just for
"Whoa,
fun.
gosh, that's horrible." Do I look? They knew, right? Like they knew it was not going to be perfect, which is
Yeah.
amazing.
Which is a great lesson in and of itself to like, and people were just like, the reveals were hilarious because they were just laughing,
Yeah,
laughing. 'Cause they're
Like,
like, "Oh,
wow.
you've
Yeah.
tried. Everything's out of proportion." Like,
So good. Yeah.
things are, but it's about the fun and the play and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
I love it. This
Yeah.
is such great advice and so many fun ways for people just to be able to like say, "Oh, wait, I am kind of a perfectionist. Let me practice this." And it is practice, right? It's
Oh, yeah.
practice. You you're not going to undo years of trying to be perfect in 1 hour. But the more
Yeah.
you do it and the more you realize that, "Oh, wait a second, it's terrible, but I'm improving," or
Mhm.
"I don't even care anymore." It's what's important. This is such a great lesson.
For sure. Yeah.
How do people connect with you? What tell us more. Where do we find you? How do we connect?
Yeah, so you can find me on my website, which is jencolombo.com, which I'm sure we're
Mhm.
going to drop in the show notes,
Yes, we
especially
are.
since no one spells my last name correctly. And the best place to find me if you want to even get some mindful stuff. I'm always posting mindful stuff and like even
Mm,
breathing stuff like with my artwork
yeah.
as the backdrop. On Instagram, that's usually where I hang out, and my handle is Jen Fay Art. If you're curious about working with me with creative explorations, I will have that link dropped for you too separately. So
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, they will all be in the show notes and I will make sure to tag you and everything. And yeah, this is just such great. Like, I think that play is so important. It is really difficult to feel anxious and to feel stressed when you're playing and
yes,
when you let yourself have fun. And that's kind of my whole thing with coaching. Like, let's make it fun. If it's not fun, it's just going to stress you out more. And this is such a great way to combat that. Thank you for sharing this.
you're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.